fractions to decimals using number chips. This is the Easter version. This is a lot of fun for the students. They can move these number chips around their screen in order to convert fractions to decimals. So the lesson starts with having students just move these numbers into place. And we're just looking for what we need to multiply each of these numbers to get 100. And that will help us convert a fraction to an equivalent fraction with 100 in the denominator. So all they have to do to move the number chips is click and hold on the edge. So they know that they have to multiply 50 times 2, 25 times 4, 20 times 5, and so on. Every slide has every number the students need. So as these problems get a little bit more difficult, if they get to the end and the numbers aren't working, they know they've made an error somewhere and they need to go back and check. So they're going to start on slide 3, and they're going to convert these fractions to equivalent fractions with 100 in the denominator. So here we have 9/50ths. I have to multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number. And I know that I have to multiply 50 times 2. So I'm going to move that 2. That means I also have to multiply the numerator by 2, and that gives me an equivalent fraction of 1800ths. Same thing here, 5/25ths I have to multiply by 4, numerator and denominator. That gives me an equivalent fraction of 20 hundredths, and so on. Now, slide 4 is a review of place value. So students need to know these different place value by moving the numbers into place following these directions. So it says place your 4 in the ones place, 8 in the hundreds place, and so on. And they should use every single number. So that's a good review. The next slide explains how to change this fraction with 100 in the denominator to a decimal. So if our denominator is 100, then we look at our numerator. The number here on the far right is going to go in the hundreds place if our denominator is 100. So we know the 9 has to go here. Here, the 3 has to go in the hundreds place. And here the 0 has to go in the hundreds place. And once we do that, then we can just fill in the rest by placing the numbers in order. So this number has to be a 0 now. So 49 hundredths as a fraction and 49 hundredths as a decimal. Same thing with the other two. Once we place these numbers, then we just place the other numbers in order. So students are going to be doing that on the next slide. 45 hundredths, that 5 has to go in the hundreds place. So they're going to show these two as decimals. Same thing on the next slide. We've got this one, they need to be a little bit careful. That 5 has to go in the hundreds place. And then we fill in the other two with zeros. Now we get to the next slide. Now we've got some fractions where the numerator is larger than the denominator. So here again, the 1 is going to go in the hundreds place, and then we just fill in the other two numbers. So we're going to get 3 and 31 hundredths. Same thing on the next one. Now starting on slide 9, students are going to be converting these fractions to equivalent fractions with 100 in the denominator. So we know these two have to be 100, and then convert them to decimals. Same thing on the next two slides. Now we may need to simplify our fraction first because we can't convert 40 directly to 100 by scaling up. So if we simplify our fraction by dividing by 2, we get a simplified equivalent fraction of 3/20ths. Now that we have 3/20ths, we can convert it to an equivalent fraction with 100 in the denominator, which will give us 15 hundredths, and then we can convert that to a decimal. So on both of these, they're going to be simplifying first. Now we can't always change our fraction to an equivalent fraction with 100 in the denominator. On this one, we're going to simplify first by dividing numerator and denominator by 3. And since we can't convert it to an equivalent fraction with 100 in the denominator, we have to use long division, 1 divided by 8. And they have all the number chips they need to do this long division. The decimal point will go straight up into the quotient or the answer. They've got another one to practice. And then the final division problem is going to be a repeating decimal. So they're going to click and hold on this bar to show a repeating 6. And again, they have every number they need. And then finally, there's some decimals vocabulary that the students need to know: terminating, non-terminating, and repeating decimal. So this is an Easter version of fractions to decimals using number chips.